637 AD, a 14-year-old girl arrived at the palace in Chang'an. Her name was Wu Mai. Her father was Wu Shiyu, a minister of works, and her mother, Lady Yang, came from the former Sui royal family. As she departed, her mother wept uncontrollably, but Wu Mai remained remarkably calm. To her, entering the palace was not a disaster but an opportunity, a chance to change her destiny. This line of thinking was radical for the time. In that era, a woman's fate was rarely in her own hands, but Wu Mai had always been different. She was exceptionally intelligent, well-read in poetry and literature, and possessed a composure and decisiveness far beyond her years. Initially, Wu Mai quickly gained the favor of Emperor Taizong, Li Shimen. The emperor appreciated her talent and beauty, bestowing upon her the name Wu Mai, enchanting Wu. On the surface, her future seemed bright, but the palace was a place never short of young, beautiful women. Wu Mai spent 12 full years in Emperor Taizong's harem, yet her rank remained stuck at the 5th grade position of Karen talented lady. During this time, a minor incident revealed a hidden aspect of Wu Mai's character. A ferocious horse named Lion Steed was presented as tribute from the western regions. It was wild and untamable. Wu Mai proposed a plan to Emperor Taizong. First, use an iron whip to beat it. If it remains unsubdued, use an iron hammer to strike its head. If it still resists, use a dagger to cut its throat. The emperor praised her superficially, but inwardly felt a sense of caution towards this woman. This event became a turning point in her fate within Taizong's court. A woman who showed such disregard for life made even the battle-hardened emperor uneasy. From then on, Wu Mai was gradually neglected. 12 years of life in the inner court allowed Wu Mai to deeply understand the rules of the power game. She watched helplessly as she transformed from a young girl into a woman nearing 30 without any significant achievement. Worse still, Emperor Taizong's health was declining day by day, meaning she faced an even greater crisis. In 649 AD, Emperor Taizong passed away. According to custom, childless consorts were required to leave the secular world and become Buddhist nuns. The 26-year-old Wu Mai, along with other childless consorts, was sent to the Ganyi temple. This was a catastrophic fall. From a life of luxury to simple meals, from ornate palaces to the humble life of a nun with a solitary lamp and Buddha, many consorts could not withstand this. Some went mad, others committed suicide. The winters at Ganyi Temple were particularly harsh. Wu Mai's fingers cracked and bled from washing clothes in the cold, staining her monastic robes. But she did not complain about her fate. Instead, she used this time to read, think, and observe the political situation. She noted that the new emperor, Li Zi, visited the temple each year to pay respects to his deceased father. This was her only chance. The following spring, Li Zi arrived as expected. Wu Mai carefully orchestrated an accidental encounter. As Li Zi walked along a corridor, a familiar figure appeared before him. Though dressed in simple monastic robes, she could not conceal her unique aura. The sight of her, tears welling in her eyes yet not falling, perfectly evoked Li Zi's memories and pity. History favors the prepared. Wu Mai successfully captured Li Zi's attention, and not long after, she was brought back to the palace. This risky move had allowed her to walk out of a desperate situation, opening a new chapter in her life. The Wu Mai who returned to the palace was not the same woman she had been before. Her experience at Ganyi Temple had stripped away her last traces of naivety. Now, her goals were clear, and her methods shrewd. At that time, the harem was locked in a life-and-death struggle between Empress Wang and consort Zhao Shufei. In an effort to strike at consort Zhao, Empress Wang actively recommended Wu Mai to Li Zi. This was akin to inviting a wolf into the house. After returning to the palace, Wu Mai quickly gained Li Zi's exclusive favor and gave birth to a son, Li Hong, the following year. But she was not content with just the emperor's affection. She began to carefully plot her next moves. She deliberately befriended palace servants, bestowing small favors and building a vast intelligence network within the palace. 655 AD, Wu Mai played a masterstroke. Her newborn daughter suddenly died, and all evidence pointed to Empress Wang. Although historians still debate the truth of this incident, the outcome was clear. Empress Wang was deposed, and Wu Mai ascended to the position of empress. But this was not enough. Wu Mai deeply understood that mercy towards an enemy was cruelty to oneself. She imprisoned Empress Wang and consort Zhao, eventually having them executed. It is said that before her execution, consort Zhao cursed Wu Mai, saying that in the next life, Wu Mai would be reincarnated as a rat, and she herself as a cat, seizing Wu Mai by the throat for all eternity. Upon hearing this, Wu Mai reportedly issued an order forbidding the keeping of cats in the palace. This detail exposed the fear in Wu Mai's heart. Even the strongest person has their vulnerabilities. Becoming empress was only the beginning of Wu Mai's ambitions. Li Zi suffered from chronic illness, frequently experiencing dizziness that left him unable to handle state affairs. Wu Mai took over the administration of government. This responsibility lasted for over 20 years. During this period, Wu Mai demonstrated astonishing political talent. She reformed the imperial examination system, breaking the monopoly that powerful aristocratic families held over official appointments. She encouraged agriculture, filling the state treasury. She welcomed frank advice and was open to remonstrance. Gradually, the situation of the two sages ruling together took shape at court. Li Zi's feelings towards Wu Mai were complex. He depended on his wife's political abilities but grew increasingly uneasy about her expanding power. 664 AD, Li Zi could bear it no longer and conspired with the Chancellor Sheng Guanyi to depose the empress. At this critical moment, the spies Wu Mai had placed around the emperor proved their worth. She received news of the plot immediately and confronted Li Zi directly. Facing his wife's sharp gaze, Li Zi cowardly shifted all blame onto Sheng Guanyi. Sheng Guanyi became the scapegoat and was executed. From then on, Li Zi completely abandoned any thought of contesting power with his wife. Wu Mai's position became more secure than ever. In 683 AD, Emperor Li Zi passed away. For Wu Mai, this was both a crisis and an opportunity. The new emperor, Li Shan, was Wu Mai's third son. But within 2 months of his accession, he was deposed for attempting to build his own power base. The next emperor, Li Dan, was similarly a puppet. Real power rested entirely in the hands of Wu Mai, now the Empress Dowager. Wu Mai was now 60 years old, an age when most would consider enjoying a peaceful retirement. But she made a decision that shocked the empire. She would become emperor herself. This news caused an uproar in the Tang court. A woman becoming emperor was unprecedented. Many ministers strongly opposed it, and some even raised armies in rebellion. Wu Mai used an iron fist to suppress all opposition. She employed cruel officials, encouraged a culture of informants, and plunged the entire court into an atmosphere of terror. But on the other hand, she continued policies beneficial to the nation's development, and the Tang dynasty's strength did not decline, but actually grew. On the Double Ninth Festival in the year 690 AD, the 67-year-old Wu Mai formally ascended the throne, changed the name of the dynasty to Zhou, and proclaimed herself sacred and divine emperor. She created a new character for her name, Zhao, meaning the sun and moon shining together in the sky, illuminating the earth. A woman, in the male-dominated society of ancient times, had actually sat upon the dragon throne. This was an unprecedented and never repeated event in Chinese history. After proclaiming herself emperor, Wu Mai displayed an even more complex character. She appointed capable officials, accepted criticism, and promoted social and economic development. But she also grew increasingly extravagant, constructing grand palaces and temples and favoring male favorites. Most criticized was her attitude towards the succession. She vacillated for 15 years between passing the throne to a nephew from the Wu family or to a son from the Li family. Finally, in 698 AD, the 75-year-old Wu Mai made her decision. She designated Li Shan as crown prince. This decision, seemingly simple, contained profound meaning. She understood that the hearts of the people belonged to the Tang, and that her Zhou dynasty was destined to be merely an interlude in history. A coup in her later years accelerated the transfer of power. Chancellor Zhang Jianzi and others launched a military coup, killed Wu Mai's male favorites, and forced her to abdicate. The 82-year-old Wu Mai, too weak to resist, had no choice but to relinquish the throne to Li Shan. After abdicating, Wu Mai lived in isolation. She watched as Li Shan restored the great Tang dynasty, as her own Zhou dynasty vanished like smoke. The feelings in her heart were unknowable. In the winter of 705 AD, Wu Mai died of illness at the age of 82. In her final edict, she renounced her imperial title, opting instead to be known as Empress Zetian of Great Sageliness, and was buried alongside Li Zi in the Chanling Mausoleum. Her tombstone was left blank, becoming the famous wordless stele, Some say the steal is wordless because her merits and faults are too difficult to judge. Others say it was an act of wisdom, leaving the right of judgment to future generations.